Just recently, Peugeot Philippines has gone under new management, and they're really pushing the brand quite hard. As we mentioned on our previous video, the 5W08, they plan to have more than a handful of dealerships around the Philippines before year's end. And this French Revolution, as you can call it that, is spearheaded by this, the 2022 2008, or 2008 really, depending on how you say it, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is its price, because you can only pronounce it in one way, which is 1,550,000 Philippine pesos. Now, that's quite a bit of franc, if I'm being frank, with a K. Compared to its contemporaries, like, let's say, for example, the GD Coolray or the Ford Territory. So on today's episode of Behind the Wheel, I want to find out if it truly does have enough panache to keep up with the competition. Do you need help purchasing your car insurance? Head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph/car-insurance. Here, you can compare prices and customize your insurance coverage from many of the Philippines' top providers. When you've selected the insurance that's best for you, simply fill out the application and complete the transaction with ease through Visa, MasterCard, GCash, GrabPay, or PayPal, and receive your policy within the next business day. Get the best deal on insurance with AutoDeal. Now, the exterior of the 2008 or 2008 is quite stylish, really. It does stand out, like Zidane stands out. It's French after all. You've got a huge grille up front with a gorgeous logo found in the center. Up on top, you've got a full LED affair. You do not, I must point out, do not have fog lamps found down below. And you'd expect it from a crossover. But truth be told, not all crossovers actually have fog lamps. I mean, look at a Mazda. The technology allows it that it has a clear view of the road. With these lights, with auto high beam might do, actually do a good job at night. And then there's the overall look on the front clip, that it resembles sort of like a lion. You've got your claws up here and your fangs down here. Truth be told, yes, it does resemble a lion, but I'm thinking more of a cub, a very young cub, like Simba, like when he was still young and proud, way before his dad went out. Yeah, long live the king.
Long live the king.
Stampede. Ah, curse, splat. Dad? So down the side, you've got roof rails up on top, above a floating roof line, thanks to this blacked out part right here. You've got repeaters on your side mirrors, more cladding found down below to give it that crossover look. And then, I don't know if you can see this, but there are two triangles, one here from the rear and then one from the front. That sort of like give it a very unique design down the side. And of course, obviously, because since it's French, its doors come all the way down. So even if you're at a gala or a soiree, you're not gonna get anything dirty because of the grime that gets onto the car, which is actually pretty cool. Of course, you have disc brakes all around. You've got wheels that are 17s wrapped in 60 series tires. Oh, I failed to mention that there is about 170 millimeters of ground clearance, which is not the highest in its class, because the Territory's got roughly about 180 millimeters, and then the Coolray's got a little bit more, about 190 millimeters. So it is down on that, but at the very least, it doesn't do anything to its ride quality. However down that may be, it's actually up someplace else. Come with me. See, inside the Coolray, you're looking at 330 liters of space. Inside the Territory, better with 420. However, inside the Peugeot 2008, you are looking at 434 liters of space. That's 14 liters more than even the large Territory. And if you're wondering what the 14 liters can do, well, you can easily put in a balikbayan box. How about that, huh? Très bien. However, if it is kind of heavy, there is one tiny little caveat, so to speak, because this flooring down here is not the sturdiest thing on the planet. Granted, it is supported by the spare donut found underneath, but really, it's not all that strong. There is a tonneau, I must add, but for the purposes of the balikbayan box, we took that off. When you close her, The rear is actually as interesting as the front. You've got very, very unique and distinct rear tail lamps here that again look like the claw of a lion. You've got your third brake light up here and then a pretty large bumper, which, well, in the office we're kind of iffy about because we're not really quite sure how we feel about such a large bumper. The one thing that we noticed though is that the bumper is actually pretty soft, and we were joking around it's because, well, they probably need it in France because you've seen the way that they park. And to finish her off, down below, you've got twin fog lamps at the rear, which I do appreciate a lot, and twin exhausts as well. Now, the exterior of the 2008 is similar to that of the 5008 and the 3008, obviously. But when you're talking about the interior, if you expect the exact same thing, that's punching above its weight, really, and its price tag. So with that being said, it is not that roomy back here. It's not ridiculously tight, but it's not that roomy in here. 2 adults, not going to be an issue. Good elbow room for 2 adults. But if you put a third passenger, that is going to be an issue. Plus, there's a tunnel found in the middle. Seats are comfortable. It's leather, not high-class leather, but good leather so that you can easily get in and out of the automobile. However, I will say this for much larger fellows. I don't know if you can see this, but this pillar right here, just above the wheel well, it's an issue for much larger people, as Jack pointed out, because when you're getting in and out of the automobile, you can sort of like hit this back and forth. It's something that you need to get used to. That being said, the legroom is actually quite decent. This is further than my normal driving position, so I've got good legroom. My headroom is actually quite good, and I need to say that that is possible because your butt and the backrest is actually very low. You seat at an angle, so it gives you that much more headroom and that much more legroom. Toys back here include almost nil, to be honest with you. Actually, there are none. There is no center armrest. There's no cup holders, obviously, because there's no center armrest. There are bottle holders on either door, which will hold a smaller bottle to a medium-sized bottle, about 22 ounces. If you're looking at something like Jack's bottle, that's definitely not going to fit. And then, unfortunately, there are no air vents or charging points for the rear. There is a net here that you can put your phone in, and it fits quite well. So other than that, there really isn't much else to say about the rear, except for one last thing that I haven't mentioned in quite some time. There are, of course, ISOFIX tethers. Ha! It's been a while since I said that. Inside the cockpit of the cockpit of the Peugeot, the first thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of different materials up here. Up on top is a different shade of black, down here faux carbon, and then down below lots of piano black plastics, which I have to tell you, like I'm sure you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of. But I am a big fan of the fact that you can easily get into a proper driving position inside this automobile, thanks to a telescopic steering wheel. However small that it is and tiny and great to hold, the thing about it is anytime you step into a Peugeot, especially because of the iCockpit, it will take some getting used to because your instrument cluster is not seen through the steering wheel, but rather up on top. And then the fact that the infotainment system is actually tilted a little bit towards your side. I would have expected power seats inside this automobile at this price point, the fact that it's a crossover, but unfortunately it is only manual. But I must say that, again, getting into the proper driving position really isn't an issue. And then we move on to the fact that this centerpiece right here is actually pretty cool. They liken this to that of a piano, but truthfully, I kind of look at it more like the teeth of a lion. Either way that you look at it, it's actually pretty cool because it kind of sticks out very premium, really, and the touch of it is very good. These buttons are actually good for turning on your air controls and other air functions and locking the automobile. But, oh, I just locked the automobile. But really, that's about it. Because if you want to control more functions of your air, you have to go through the infotainment. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that one, well, there's a bit of a lull, to be honest with you. Well, for instance, the air controls are found within the infotainment screen. I would have preferred it to be the physical controls and only the physical controls, since that's something you adjust quite often. And then the other thing is that it's kind of hard to get to certain settings. Like if you want to adjust the EQ, you don't just have to go to the general settings. You have to go to the music menu and then tap the settings from there. Same with Bluetooth. It just feels like a bunch of steps that, well, truthfully could have been simplified. And then another thing really is the reverse camera. There is one, and it's actually pretty cool because it doesn't actually have a bird's eye view, but it paints a picture as you're backing up, so it's getting everything from your surroundings. But the frame rate is nothing so special, and truthfully, I expected just a bit more since, well, the Territory and the Coolray obviously have much better cameras than this. However, the coolest part for me is the instrument cluster of this automobile because it's a full digital affair and it's got 3D as well. So it's liken it to sort of like a heads-up display, but instead of floating up here, it's actually in here. It's actually quite cool the way that they do it and the way that it displays. And then also the housing, well, it kind of looks like you're the pilot of like Voltron or something, or the Last Starfighter. You're too young for the Last Starfighter, right? Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you look at it from a side angle, I might rip that off. Sorry. As I'm pretty sure you're interested to know what's underneath the hood, let's go for a quick drive right now in the 2008. But before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos. At the heart of the 2008 is a 1.2-liter turbocharged gasoline engine that produces 130 horses and 230 Newton meters of torque. And I gotta tell you, that engine is semi-magnifique because it is quite peppy and fun to drive. Now, the turbo kicks in at relatively even low RPMs, and then obviously it tapers off once you get to the top. The thing about it is whether you're stuck in traffic or you want to overtake in semi-fast speeds inside the city, or if you're on the highway, it builds up speed quite quickly. Now, for a 1.2 liter, I gotta say, I absolutely love the growl that it gives when you bury the accelerator. It's so unbecoming of such a tiny engine. It sounds so cool. The transmission is also something to talk about because unlike other cars of this category, whether it's a DCT or a CVT, this is a 6-speed automatic, and it's actually quite responsive. It does get a bit laggy when you put it in manual, but you leave it in normal mode or in drive mode, and you can select whether you're in sport or in eco. Well, better in sport, but the response is actually quite good. And that growl, again, that growl, oh man. Now that growl will get you going really, really well, and you'll want to continue that sound by burying your right foot all the time. But then you gotta, pull the reins back and understand that this is a 1.2 liter. And even though it's got a turbocharger, then you'd probably expect that fuel efficiency isn't anything great. You're probably right on that when you're talking about stuff inside the city, because then you're doing about 8.5 kilometers per liter, which is nothing spectacular, but it's on the highway that it really shines because it sails past 22 kilometers per liter. This 1.2. I will say this though, there is a drawback to the engine. The fact that it's a 3-cylinder, there are some vibrations that you can hear and can be felt at the same time. Whether you're going slow in traffic, or actually you can feel it more when you're stopped. It's a 3-cylinder, so there is somewhat of a sound going on. It's not as bad as a diesel engine, but if you're not used to the car, you might actually question it every once in a while. The steering is quite light and direct. The car is actually very agile. Not to a point where the steering is like a toy, no. It communicates the road very well, sometimes a little too well because the suspension leans a bit on the stiffer side. So blemishes on the road will really be felt inside the cabin. The good part, the trade-off in all of that, is that at least when you're taking turns up mountainous roads, it gives you a lot of confidence. The car is put together in a sense that it actually feels light when you're driving it, and yet it's still got a powerful engine. So you put those two together, and truthfully, it's actually a very nimble drive, and I like that. It's very quick on its feet. Although I gotta admit, it's not all foie gras and baguettes, I don't know, whatever it may be. There are some drawbacks to the automobile, like for instance, the wind noise. That kind of creeps in at about 50, 60 kilometers per hour. Then there's the fact that I'm not a big fan of the cruise control, which is on a stalk. There is cruise, but it's on a stalk instead of being on the steering wheel. Just put it on the steering wheel. It's small things like that that kind of get your itch a little bit. But in general, it's still really a fun car to drive. Let's be real here for a moment. If you expected a little bit more from the 2008, I completely understand where it is that you're coming from, because up against other crossovers that we've been pitting it against today, like the Coolray and the Territory, well, for starters, those cars have a 360-degree view camera. This does not. And those two cars are actually more affordable. About the 2008 though, it's just got so much character, doesn't it? There's nothing like it on Philippine roads. It truly does stand out. And the engine, although it does have its drawbacks, it still has a lot of character. The whole car does. It's like Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast. What is it with the cartoons today? What I'm trying to get at is that this car has so much flair that it's quite hard to convey it onto a spec sheet. It's got a certain je ne sais quoi, if you will.